little countries, and everyone wants to be an emir and to be, the king and so on. And they would make the poor non-Muslims, every time they go through a village, they have to pay tax. You can imagine a non-Muslim traveling through Spain. Every village has to pay tax, and that tax goes to the king or the ruler or the emir of that territory. So it was disastrous. No, I mean, you should research for yourself the history of Andalusia. You'll find Muslims committed a lot of mistakes, and they definitely deserved losing Spain because they were not, basically, the عباد الله يعني وعد الله الذين آمنوا وصلحوا منكم لا يستخلفنهم في الأرض. The wa'd of Allah, the promise of Allah, is only for those who believe and work righteousness. He will give them authority in the land. Of course, if they abandon this, then they will not deserve this. So, is that a question or something? Okay, so now basically what happened, sister, that after this, after Muslims abandoned Islam and started getting weak and they started getting divided, who took advantage of this? The Crusades. And again, the forces came back, led by Queen Elizabeth, and basically they started fighting the Muslims, and you'd be surprised. Even some of the Muslims even fought with the Crusades against other Muslims. It was just, one of the things, just studying Sharia, this is one part, the Islamic history and the falling of Spain, it just makes you really, really sad, very sad. And of course, after that, what happened, that they lost Spain, and the Crusades, they converted them by force. They gave them the option, initially, either you stay and be a Catholic, specifically a Catholic, you're not allowed to be anything else but a Catholic, Roman Catholic. Or you leave the country and you leave all of your property behind you. Everything that you've worked for, everything that you own, you just take your belongings and just leave. You and your family and just leave everything initially. But then those who stayed, subhanAllah, they were forced, because a lot of them actually migrated and left Spain. This is why you find that the biggest Jewish community in Israel, actually the second biggest Jewish community in Israel, are who? Are the Moroccan Jews. Because subhanAllah, the Jews of Spain, they left Spain. They escaped the persecution of the Crusades, and they inhabited Morocco. They went actually to two places. Morocco, most of them went to Morocco, and some went to Turkey. So the Jews left, and they sought shelter with the Muslims, and they lived there. So whoever stayed in Spain and kind of tried to hide their religion and identity, they started something called the Inquisition course, as I said, which was they would go and investigate and put informants everywhere, trying to find anybody who frequently showers, or someone who prays, or someone who goes in names like an Islamic name or something, or someone who they have suspicion that he could be a Muslim, or he does not drink, or does not do this, or does not do that, and then they will find out, and then they will take him, and they had then even built under the ground at the church. Every church had those like torture rooms, like underground, and they would take them, and you can imagine all sorts of torture that you cannot imagine a human being would do that to a fellow human being. So this is just to answer your question, sister. So they were forced. So again, the Crusades took over Spain after being a Muslim country, and they forced it to be a Catholic country. So I'd like from you also like another tough question.
No, actually, I just wanted to see if you can approach that topic of Spain in a different way. Actually, how you can approach it? You can approach that topic by they went there to build a country. They left civilizations. You can invite the Catalan Muhammad to Spain and see what's Muslim left there.
Right.
And they didn't want that to destroy, like we have occupation of France, occupation of England in North Africa, stuff. What they left, and you go what Muslim left there. It's totally different things. They didn't want there to just do occupation. They want there to build. They left.
It was a civilization.
Yeah.
It was actually the beginning of the modern civilization in Europe.
Yes.
I mean, they left. I mean, we can elaborate on this. I just didn't want to take it, but it's a good point. Exactly. Okay. Tough question. What do you take from this side?
One Chinese man said to me that the religion is a weakness, and the politician control the people during this weakness.
Okay, it's a good point. This person said that religion is a weakness, And politicians control people through religion, right? He's absolutely right. That does happen. It did happen. This is why Islam came, to prevent that. Islam came to, as I mentioned earlier, to free the slaves of Allah from being enslaved like slaves. So basically, you're right. So tell this is why in Islam, we, and of course you can explain that to him, that in Islam, you can explain to him that in Islam, we have rules to prevent that. This is why the government itself, or the politicians, they are actually selected carefully to be the most learned, righteous, pious, practicing, Muslim, just, all these qualities to be in those politicians. So they will be like the righteous monks of that society, the righteous, devout worshippers. They will be like the cream of the crop society. People who are not greedy, who are not about this life, who are not about power, none of these things. This is how it should be done in Islam. There's no election, but there is selection, because election is so dangerous. If this person has got cash and has got money, he can win the election. He can bribe people, and he can do a lot, even not necessarily bribe, but campaigning. It's not even here in our Western societies. Whoever has more money wins the election, always, right? Most of them, whoever has more money wins. This is so unfair. This is total injustice and oppression. To force someone who's rich upon the people. Romney, look at Romney. A man he's literally missing many screws in his brain. And he's got to a point that he became the nominee. And he was so close to beat Obama. And he has no qualification whatsoever except that he's got money. The only thing he has. No brain, no common sense, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I've been following him for years, by the way. I've been following this guy. Absolutely nothing. He changed a lot. And he it seems like he has been trained before this, campaigning. He changed a lot because he's extremely crazy. So anyway, so what got him to that point is money. So you explain to him that justice system in Islam. So if you explain to him, inshallah, it should make sense then. This is why Islam came to change that. So, that's an excellent question. People bring it all the time. They say, that your prophet is a womanizer. He's got married multiple times, and they refer to his 9 marriages, right? Or total of
15,
12. So but he had 9 wives at the same time. So he would refer to that. It's a good concern. Makes sense. How can a prophet do this? This is awful. This is absurd, right? How can I explain it? How can a prophet do this?
Number one, most of while he was young, youth, he have only one woman. Why?
Good. So now you want to build the case. Now we are okay. Now, so the first thing that now, basically, what they're referring to him being married multiple times and having many wives at the same time, they are referring to this man he has a weakness or defect in his personality, right? That he is a womanizer, right? He's a womanizer. So now we are dealing with that fact or that allegation of him being a womanizer. So we are going back to the early stages of his life. He was only 25 years old. 25. Never been married. And he got married to a widow who was 15 years older, who was previously married too. So she was previously married, and she's 15 years older. So how can you accuse him of being a womanizer? This does not make any sense. Okay, so one point, but this is not enough. You have to build. You have to build that. You have to really elaborate more. Good. So what else? This is a good point. Another point. Okay, defend that. Go ahead.
Many marriages was for his favor was because he's a prophet. Like Sayyida Aisha, he did it for under from Allah Azza wa Jal, and some other marriages for other reasons.
Okay, so now I'll take from your. I'll take some, and I will advise you not to use others. You said that his marriages were done for a reason, and this is right. This is 200%. His multiple marriages were done for a purpose. However, do not ever say it was a command from Allah, because they're going to tell you, you know what, this is nonsense. He was just saying this so that he can, do whatever he wants. So never say always, anytime you give da'wah, find a common ground between you and this person, either through logic, either through, of course, reasoning and or through proofs. Always find a common ground, but never say it was God's command to him. Never say it's mentioned in the Quran or the Sunnah, because this person, to begin with, he doesn't even believe in what you believe. If he believes in the Quran or the Sunnah, he'd be a Muslim. Not even yet. You don't have to even go through all of this. So never say it because God commanded him. But always come up with a logical reason. So you can say his marriages were done for a purpose. But then you have to explain it. You have to elaborate more. Like, give me an example. Give me examples for each of his marriages. Huh?
Relationship with the clients.
Okay, so let's mention some of the examples. The Arabs, and you have to understand the background here of Arabia. Arabs before Islam, Arabs prior to Islam used to have massive fights, endless fights over the silliest reasons. They would fight for 40 years, in instance. A war that would continue for 40 years, with thousands being killed and enslaved. They would kill and enslave each other, rape each other's women. Over what? Because a camel came and ate from the next door neighbor's crops. They were like, subhanAllah, you can imagine. So what they would do, anytime they want to bring peace between clans and tribes, they would do one thing that would end this tribulation forever. They would do what? Marriage. Because now once they are married, even subhanAllah, it's still practiced in tribal areas until today, by the way. Is known in tribal areas until today. If two tribes are fighting and they want to ever make peace, then they get the leader of the tribe being married to the daughter of the leader of the other tribe. It's a common, practice. It's been done, and it's been going on for thousands of years. So now, Prophet ﷺ, him being the head of the Muslim state, him being basically the representatives of the Muslims, and basically he was like the Amir or the leader of the tribe. Basically, he's representing that leadership. If Muslims are having a struggle or a war with other tribe, he would actually, for instance, who can give me an example to support this? With, like what? Who give me an example to support this? The Prophet ﷺ married daughters of leaders of the tribe, like of different tribes, like Safiya, the daughter of Huyay ibn Akhtab, the head of the Jews. He married Juwayriyah bint al-Harith, the daughter of the leader of the tribe of Banu Mustalik. I'm sorry? Salama, for a different reason though, but even Salama, it's even more noble, subhanAllah, if you think about the example of Salama, she was an older lady. It was told that she was 60 years old. She was an older lady. And the Prophet ﷺ married her after her beloved husband died. Like, she was really, she loved him so much. And he was such a virtuous man, one of a kind, that she thought that no one was better than him. And Salama was a widow. She was a widow, and she had also orphans. These were left with children as well. So subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ, after he married her, and just to give you an example, of course, an older lady, if he is a womanizer, and imagine he's now the head of the strongest force in Arabia, he can go and marry the most beautiful women, and he can choose from the youngest girls and everything. None of his wives were virgins except Aisha al-Anha. I'll mention the whole thing about Sayyida Aisha al-Anha. So now Salama, on her wedding night, the Prophet ﷺ, when she came to him, she came by herself on her wedding night, and the Prophet ﷺ asked, "Oh Salama, where are your children?" So she said, "Oh Messenger of Allah, I didn't think that it was appropriate for me to bring my children on a wedding night." So, "Oh Salama, I married you for your children. Go and bring your children." And the Prophet ﷺ insisted that she would bring her children, and he did not leave them except after he saw a smile on their faces, and he entertained them on that night. Make them feel that their mother is not being taken away from them. SubhanAllah. And And you can imagine, and we're talking about an older lady here. The Prophet ﷺ is married to Sauda bint Zam'a, and is not ashamed to mention that even the books of the Sirah, the description of that Mu'mineen, Sauda, which is, she's a virtuous woman, she is mother of the believers, but I'm just here mentioning to a non-Muslim, so I have to use these things. According to her description of the Sunnah, she was known to be like really, big. She was a big woman, subhanAllah. She was maybe the most beautiful, but I'm just saying. Here, imagine now a head of the state who's got all the power to marry anyone he wants, that anyone in Arabia will give him his daughter. You can pick the most beautiful, the youngest, like girls with bodies of like models or supermodels, whatever. He's got this authority, he has these options right there. Why would he go and do this? Except that he's a very noble person. His marriage, subhanAllah, if you count, if you add to this, his marriage to even Maria al-Qibtiyya, she was actually gifted to him, by Muqawqis, the king of Egypt, who actually after the Prophet sent him a message to accept Islam, he respected him and he honored him, and he sent him actually to Maria, and also another woman as well, that subhanAllah was, he granted her, I think he gave her to his poet, what's his name? You can remind me? Hassan bin Thabit. So he gave her to actually Hassan bin Thabit. So the Prophet honored her, and he actually made her live in a nice place. Actually, because she came from a classy Egyptian family and so on. So he actually made for her like a very nice environment, and she lived on the outskirts of Medina and the nice house and everything. And he honored her, and he married her instead of her being a slave. The Prophet ﷺ, his marriage to what else? Zainab bint Jahsh is Zainab. We know the story how the Prophet ﷺ, first of all, Zainab is his cousin, and she's been around him her entire life, right? If he wanted to marry her initially, he could have married her, right? But then there was a purpose for this marriage. The Prophet ﷺ, as you know, his adopted son, Zayd ibn Haritha, married, of course, adoption at a later stage in Islam was prohibited, but his adopted son, Zayd ibn Haritha, he married her, and then they did not get along. There was a lot of problems that happened between them, and they got divorced. And the Prophet ﷺ even, many times he would try to reconcile and help the marriage and save the marriage, but it just did not work out. So now, him being the adopted son of the Prophet ﷺ, the Arabs have this in their culture. If the adopted son ever marries a woman, then the father, or basically it's not a real father now, but in Islam after the prohibition of adoption, still the Arabs did not really understand that concept. They still treated their adopted sons as their own sons, and then those sons treated them like fathers. So in order for the Arabs to understand that concept, because they felt so ashamed of marrying adopted son's wife or former wife, of course, divorcee or something, they felt so ashamed. So the Prophet ﷺ set the example for them, and he was commanded, فَزَوَّجْنَاكَ, even she's the only wife. She's the only wife. Zainab, that the Prophet ﷺ did not do a marriage contract with her, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent that command from above 7, and she used to take pride in this. I'm the only wife that Allah married me to His Prophet. SubhanAllah. It was in the Quran, it's still in the Quran. So it was done for a purpose. So now, after this was done, now the Arabs treated their adopted sons or former adopted sons as strangers and so on. And the reason behind the prohibition of adoption in Islam is not because you may think, oh, really? That doesn't make sense. Why adoption is something good? No, Islam prohibited adoption, but still endorsed sponsorship. So you can endorse the orphan. And the Prophet ﷺ said, one of the biggest things that I advise every Muslim, if you're not doing it, you're missing out a lot. Not to sponsor an orphan. The Prophet ﷺ said, أنا وكافل اليتيم كهاتين في الجنة والشجرة وزباعي السبابة والوسطى. Me and the sponsor of the orphan are like this in Jannah. And he pointed with his middle finger and his index finger, just like that. We'll be that close in Jannah. And so sponsorship is still legitimate, it's still allowed. But the reason why adoption, and I see this every day in this country, why adoption is forbidden in Islam, what it's meant by adoption is to give a person your last name. That this person, this child, he will never talk to his original parent ever, or even bother to search for his what they call biological parent, right? Because now he's got a new family, and totally you sever any ties of kinship at that point, which is prohibited in Islam. So this is why Allah prohibited that. So after this incident, now Arabs came to that understanding, practically, and Muslims, yes, this has been prohibited and it's over, it's done deal, it's history. You can research every one of them. Habiba, his wife, is the daughter of who? Habiba? Abu Sufyan, dad of Quraysh. His marriage even to Aisha, that he gets so, there was so much talk from the non-Muslims accusing him and attacking his personality. And I agree with you. Ali said earlier that his marriage from Aisha was based on a command from Allah. However, this is the very last thing you want to mention, that it is a command from Allah. However, you mentioned like logically speaking, okay, why, or by evidence and by reasoning why his marriage to Aisha made sense, or was the right decision to be made. Why would a 53 years old man marry a 6 years old? And you can explain it. First, is it true that he married a 6 years old? Was Sayyidah Aisha 6 years old at the time? True or false?
There is some talk about she was not.
She was 9.
It is true and false at the same time. Yes, they did the marriage contract at the age of 6. However, they never consummated the marriage until she was 9. She was at puberty, basically, and she was ready to be married. And subhanAllah, my grandmother was married at the age of 12. I know, like, distant relatives in our family that were married only 50 years ago, not 1400 years ago, at the age of 10. 10. If a woman is grown and she has her puberty, and especially, you cannot compare a modern society that totally spoils its generation, and of course, even if you study sociology yourself, you'll find even the scholars of sociology even divide generations into generation like baby boomers, generation X, generation Y, and he will mention to you the progression and the difference between how the American society started spoiling their generation until they became the way how they are today. But this was not the fact. This is not the time to elaborate on this. But I'm just giving you an example how in a normal society, even you go in today's world, any tribal area, if even you go to Amazon, to Africa, even some parts of I've seen this, and I know I have a lot of Yemeni friends, and they tell me the children marrying each other because he's not a child. Yes, his age is a child, but he's a real man because they make him very responsible, and so on. So Sayyidah Aisha, when the Prophet consummated the marriage, meaning they lived together. Just to give you a background, the Prophet he married her based on the command by Allah. We mentioned the significance of that. Why was he commanded to marry her? So now she's a grown-up woman. She received puberty. Now she's ready to get married. They get married, they consummate the marriage, and she lives with the Prophet in the same household, right? So now, first thing you mentioned to them is Sayyidah Aisha, radiallahu anha. Of course, after you mentioned that this is false, she got married at the age of 9 after she received her purity and everything. You mentioned to them, was the Prophet the first man ever in their life? No. She was previously married?
Engaged.
Exactly, previously engaged. So she was previously engaged. What? That doesn't make sense. Like, seriously? If the Prophet now the person is listening to you is like, wow, is he going to be like thinking? He got married to her. He did the marriage contract at the age of 6. At the age of 6. So she was even engaged even younger than this? Seriously, what kind of woman was she? See, and then you cannot compare. They're just, it's like so, the environment is so different. It's extremely, the society is very different. And you'll find even according to the scientists of physiology, they tell you that women in warm regions tend to even grow faster. Speaking about 1400 years back. And human beings, even according to even latest scientific research, saying that they've been almost like shrinking in size and so many other characteristics. This is it's a proof actually that is supported by a lot of research. You can mention to that too that Sayyidah Aisha her marriage to the Prophet was never ever criticized by anybody. And at that time. Although the Prophet ﷺ had enemies from mushrikeen, the pagans of the Arabs, enemies from the Christians, from the Jews, from the Majus, the Zoroastrians, the fire worshippers. None of his enemies ever attacked his personality. He called them a liar. He called them a sorcerer. He called them a poet. He called them insane. He called them with a despiser. He called them all kinds of names. But none of them ever dared to say he's a pedophile. Because they say, oh, he's a pedophile. And come on. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm sorry? Yeah, but even say, even let's assume that this is the case, because now again you're giving you should have intellectual conversation. A lot of these things may hurt you from the inside, but still you want to explain Islam, you want to convey it to this person with logic and reasoning. And you explain to him, a victim of a pedophile, a child who's been abused for so long, from the age of 6 until the age of 18, 12 years, right? The most crucial time in any human being's growth here, 6 to 18. Would he be a genius later on? I mean, of course not. He'll be traumatized. He'll have all kind of accumulations and all kind of psychological, mental problems, right? But then we'll mention what Sayyid Aisha did at a later stage in history. So now we're just explaining to him. So you want to tell me 1400 years later, if his enemies were just waiting for anything and just bombarding him with accusations and allegations and all kind of attacks that he's received from them, you want to tell me that they could not find something? That was something, so what? That was totally the norm at that time. And a mature man married an adult person. All these man-made laws of being an adult is at the age of 18, or some other countries 21, or other countries 16. It's all man-made laws. I mean, once you receive your puberty, if you are living in a normal society, and just subhanAllah things are, and you're being given responsibilities, and you are in a place of basically you are raised well, and you are being responsible, and if you work and you are holding this kind of position of responsibility, you at the age of puberty, as a man, you're what, 12, 13? 13, I've seen 13 years old who are men, wallah, real men, 13 years old. And I've seen women who are like 9 or 10 years old. I've seen these things, by the way, in the year after, like in the 2000s, not even 1400 years ago. What's the big deal? Do you want to tell me, if she was engaged at the age of even younger than 6, that was shame? Of course not, that was something normal. But you guys, because of all the change that you've done to your society, the way how we spoil our children, the way how we applying the standards of the 21st century to the standards of the 7th century. This is just totally different. Totally different. So now, you add to this, and just to let you know, that Aisha Radhiyallahu anha, she narrated to us. We know, like for instance, like subhanAllah, some of the Sahaba, she was the top narrator of the hadith, and although, for example, if you compare her to although Abu Hurairah, he related and narrated more hadith, 5,374 hadith. If you compare this hadith, subhanAllah, Abu Hurairah, he was just a man who memorized. He was memorized, and he understood a lot of the hadith. But then Sayyidah Aisha, she was a faqihah. She knew the explanation and the interpretation of every hadith, pretty much. She would ask the Prophet ﷺ, she was very sharp, photographic memory, she was a genius of her time. To the point that she preserved Islam after the death of Prophet ﷺ. A lot of the fuqaha, they say that, subhanAllah, like about 50% or more of our fiqh goes back to Aisha radhiyallahu anha. Imagine an 18 years old woman who would teach the Sahaba. We're talking about the heads of the Sahaba, Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, and Umar and Uthman and Ali, and they would come to her seeking knowledge, and she would stand and she would give speeches and she would teach them behind a partition, of course. So she was a genius of her time. She memorized thousands of hadith and she knew the explanation, and she was not a normal teenager. Imagine we're speaking of imagine like Aisha and her weight in Islam, subhanAllah, and her her favors upon Islam and Muslims. Would you ever imagine that she was only 18 after the death of Prophet Muhammad? Does that shock you or not? Shocking, absolutely shocking. I cannot imagine like studying fiqh. I cannot imagine our fiqh without the Sayyidah Aisha. And pretty much in almost every fiqh issue we have in Islam, every Islamic law, principle almost that we have, or basically ruling that we have in Islam, we'll find that Sayyidah Aisha is there. Her hadith, or her opinion, or this or that. She was a genius of her time. This is why it makes sense to mention, to conclude that Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her marriage to the Prophet ﷺ was based on a command from God to preserve Islam after the death of his Prophet ﷺ, and that makes a lot of sense because she lived 42 years, over 42 years after his death, teaching Muslims and preserving that heritage and preserving that religion after his death. So it made sense for her to marry such a young wife who was sharp, who was intelligent, genius, who preserved all these hadith with such photographic memory so that you can preserve Islam and teach Muslims and transfer that knowledge for over 4 decades. And we know that she was one of the teachers of the Tabi'in. The Tabi'in would come to her all the time and seek knowledge from her, especially Umar ibn Zubayr, the famous Tabi'in, who was actually her nephew. And many others from his fellow students would come and seek knowledge from Aisha. Over 4 decades preserving our Islam, preserving, all these hadith that could have been lost. Because if you compare Sayyidah Aisha to the other wives, they would be shy. They'd be shy to ask. The other wives would be like, they have so much respect for the Prophet ﷺ, they would feel that if they asked him, they'd be challenging him. So they would not ask. But she was sharp. She did not fear to ask because she wanted to learn so that she can convey that knowledge. And it was definitely a command that made a lot of sense. Does it make sense now to mention that it was a command by God? Does it, after all of this? It does make sense. Explain it that way. Do you agree with you? And alhamdulillah, now you kind of almost defended 2 points at the same time. Him, being a pedophile, because I was going to address this, or a child molester, and him being a womanizer, and that's it. It's a done deal. Of course, there are a lot more arguments, but I see it's 8:45, so inshallah I'll end it right there. And inshallah, maybe 5 minutes for questions. Just 5 minutes, brief questions, if you have questions. Fadal.
One of the big issues now is, or the question is, if Islam is so good and so nice, how come the Muslims are living in very bad situations, and Islamic countries are ruled by dictators and all this kind of...
Excellent question. Because Muslims or Arabs at that time, they were the worst human beings on earth. So Islam came to change that. So Islam came to change that. Islam, definitely if you compare, and subhanAllah, if you would advise you, the books of Sirah always have a chapter. Before even the birth of the Prophet ﷺ, talking about the situation of the Arabs before Islam. Advise to read the situation of the Arabs. So much immorality, so much injustice, so much oppression, so much barbarism that was just taking place at the time. So now, Islam made those people into the leaders of the world. That Islam, in the first 30 years, subhanAllah, they always even say this, they tell you before the fall of Spain, 2/3 of the world population were Muslims. Before the fall of Spain, 2/3 of the world population were Muslims. We're talking about an empire that expanded from China all the way to Spain in just a matter of a few decades, right? And they became the leaders of the world in everything. And even we're talking about knowledge, not just military-wide or economy. Even the knowledge, look at their knowledge is still being taught until today in the Western universities. With Lucina, and you have even algebra. SubhanAllah, the founder of algebra is a Muslim, and it's named after him. And so many of them, plenty of examples until today. So you let them know that Muslims, when they practice Islam, they became the leaders of the world. And they surpassed everybody. And when they abandoned Islam, this is exactly what happened to them. So it is Islam that actually, their practice to Islam is what makes them superior or inferior. Or it's just proportional. The more you practice Islam, the more superior you are, and the lesser, the inferior you become. Okay, let me just see this. Being a Muslim, I cannot accept that marrying at the age of 9 for a regular person, a thoughtful act because of social and emotional immaturity. By that, I mean that at age, a girl cannot fulfill responsibilities of a wife. I've read a lot of versions about Aisha's marriage, including that is not exactly known what age she was at the time of consummation. This seems to be most plausible explanation for that. No, plausible, she's saying pleasable explanation and event, and even putting the Prophet's case as unique and as a command of Allah. It is not a foundation for forcing girls marry right after puberty in the modern age. Well, here's the thing, sister. Jazakallah khair, appreciate this. Thank you for asking. You're right, and at the same time, there may be a few things that maybe we should ponder over. First, you're right. At this age and time, if the girl is not mature, she's not ready. I would not recommend whatsoever. For your daughter or your sister to marry at the age of 9. At this given time, it doesn't make any sense because again, society itself it just made them treated them like children. So they're not mature. A girl should not be married. And by the way, Sayyidah Aisha, when we mentioned she was 9 at the time of marriage, she was very mature and very ready. So now there's the analogy does not apply here. If the girl is not ready for marriage and she's a child, she should not get married. At the same time, it's a prerequisite in Islam. It's from the shurut, conditions of marriage to be valid and sound, that you must seek her what? Consent. The consent of the girl. If she objects, she cannot get married. So that girl, the 9 years old, if she is mature, then definitely this applies. This definitely applies. If all the qualities of Sayyidah Aisha were 9 years old, at any given time, in a different place, then yes, we say, according to Islam, I'm not speaking about secular law. Of course, I do not ever recommend that you break the law, because this is going to be in trouble, and you should avoid getting in trouble. If the law of the country prohibits marrying at a certain age, then you should respect the law of the country, because you do not want to cause jeopardy for yourself and your family and so on. So I would not recommend that. But I'm saying if this a different place that allows this, and the girl is mature enough and she's okay with that marriage, then yes, she definitely can get married. And actually, the hadith, sister, is mentioned in Sahih Muslim. So the hadith is very authentic. I've heard of these other arguments saying that Aisha's age was not known, but it's unfortunately is not done by scholars. We find that work is just, or basically well-grounded scholars, because the most authentic hadith that have the unanimous consensus and agreement of the scholars of the Ummah of Hadith, they agree that Jumhur Muhaddithin, they agree that Al-Bukhari Muslim, they're all authentic. So if you come and you try to refute a Hadith Muslim or Al-Bukhari based on someone's explanation, trust me, I've read all the other researches, and I wish, trust me, I would love to bring this up, but you'll be deceptive if you do this, because we should never water down Islam. We should always say the truth, and we should never lie about Islam, or try to adorn it in a false manner. Yes, you can always break at the end of the topic. It doesn't hurt to end the argument by saying, you know what, and just to let you know, there is no unanimous consensus, there is no unanimous agreement or consensus from the scholars, from the Muslim scholars, upon the exact age of Aisha. Because yes, there are some scholars who have a lot of talk about it. However, I explained to you, what I personally believe. Alhamdulillah, I cannot deny hadith in Muslim or Bukhari. Cannot deny that under any circumstances, especially after studying Sharia. There's just no way. Go ahead.
I was hearing one time on the radio, and they are talking about the subject about the girls around 13, 14, 15 being already in sexual relationship in schools.
Elementary school, girls are getting elementary school.
Percentage basically, it was really high.
Yeah.
And they were trying to get the idea of the fathers, mothers, teaching what they
Of
think
course.
about
I mean,
it.
come on. Go to public school. Now girls are getting pregnant in middle school, even elementary. They have many cases now. Even elementary school, girls getting pregnant at the age of 9 and 10. Several. Google it for yourself. When you go back home tonight, Google it. They find it. It's happening here. So, okay.
There was a particular question, it shouldn't be too difficult or take too long. So the Quran basically condemns other religions being false, and that a non-Muslim will basically have to perish in hell. So this is an idea that a lot of other religions, basically Judaism
Right,
especially,
right.
Jews will say that, oh, you don't have to be Jewish to be saved or something like this. Like Judaism was a religion for the Jews. You can still be saved. They'll say stuff like this.
It's not true. Okay, so basically you're saying how can I address that?
Yeah, how do you address the situation where, I mean, obviously, you know that if one religion is right, by default, others must be wrong.
Right.
But how do you say this in a nicer way?
That others will perish. Either you believe in the truth or you perish. This is a tough one, and it's really easy to explain, but it's a lot of Muslims, they have a very hard time explaining this. SubhanAllah, it's answered. And Muslim Ahmad, the hadith related by Abu Hurairah, hadith Hasan. So here the Prophet maybe before I mention the hadith, now we say, well, repeat the question. A person can come to you and tell you, well, Islam claims that either you be a Muslim or you perish in hellfire, and you basically abide therein forever and so on, right? And of course, other religions say the same thing, even if they kind of change that. I mean, but trust me, I've studied religions and I know exactly. There are, the mainstream Christians, even the Christians, they do that to themselves. If you're not from this denomination or that sect, then you go into hellfire. Like Lutheran, they believe everyone who's not Lutheran is in the hellfire. Catholics, everyone who's not a Catholic is in the hellfire, and so on. They even do that to themselves. So how can I address this? So tell them, first, let me ask you something. Now, if we know for a fact, if someone has been giving the proof, clear proof, that certain way of life, a certain creed of faith is what is desired, to be by God to be practiced, or desired to be practiced by God to His human beings, right? And now it's clear, someone who had that clear vision, and that basically had the proof that this is the way that God, the Creator of the universe, who created me and gave me endless bounties and blessings, subhanAllah, that I should somehow pay Him back for it, right? So, and He showed me that truth. And now I know for a fact, without any doubt, that this is the truth from God. What would you think He would do to me? It makes sense that He would punish me. Is it right or wrong? Yes, it is. It makes sense. If you know. So now, based on that, a person who is not exposed to Islam, or a person who did not, basically, he did not receive da'wah, or not necessarily receive da'wah, but in da'wah there is something called very significant point that you should reach when you give da'wah to a person. You should do something called iqamat al-hujjah. You are commanded as a Muslim to give da'wah, not just to convey the message of Islam, but to do something beyond giving da'wah. It's like when you give da'wah, you must establish iqamat al-hujjah, establish the proofs of Islam upon this person. Like make this person, like قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلَ أَدْعُو اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي. Allah says in Surah Yusuf, say this is my path, to call people, call mankind to Allah with basira, with clarity, with clear vision. And basira itself is an Arabic word that is derived from what? Basar. It's like you, subhanAllah, the way how you explain Islam, you should explain it as if this person can visualize it, as if he can witness it and see it. SubhanAllah, ala basira, the word basira. You explain Islam as if this person can see the truth, can see clearly that this is, this is the truth I should follow. So if this person gets to that point, and then he chose to deny it, for whatever reason, then he definitely deserves the punishment. But then if he does not, and this is the ruling of the people of the Fatra, as they call it, Prophet said, that hadith, explaining what will happen to them, those who were not exposed to Islam, those who were not, and he said, and I have another proof also from the Quran. So the first proof, from Musa Ahmad, narrated by Abu Hurairah, that he said that you will be tested that on the veils of the day of resurrection, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will test those people who are not exposed to Islam, who did not receive basically the da'wah. So which is worse? mean, logically speaking, because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in the Quran in Surah Al-Isra, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا, that we will not punish such nation or people until we send them a messenger. Not necessarily a prophet or a human being, but a Quran could be a messenger, that is delivered by someone who has hikmah, by a good da'i. He's a messenger. Any da'i is a messenger of the messenger, right? If a person received good da'wah through a good website, or through a good translation of the Quran, supported by evidence and so on, highlighted by these things, or a da'i, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they explained it with clarity, and this person, he really was convinced that it is the truth. And then if he chose to deny it, he'll be punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So which is worse? The person, and by the way, the first hadith, is referring to people who never heard of Islam or never exposed to Islam. Which is worse? A person who is exposed, who never knew about Islam, nothing, or a person who knew a lot of things about Islam which were false, negative, misinformation, lies basically, and never found anybody to defend them. Which is worse? The second, right? So if Allah will excuse the first, how can He not excuse the second? It does make sense, because and it's supported by the Quran as well, as the verse I mentioned. So here's the thing. Those people, you let them know that if they were not exposed to the truth, if they were not exposed to the truth, then it does not make sense that God will punish them. It does not make any sense for God to punish someone who is not exposed to the truth. You want to tell me that 45.5 billion people right now on this earth, plus hundreds of billions, you can actually, the number may reach even 1 trillion on the Day of Judgment or plus, who are not exposed to Islam, who are not far away from Islam. You want to tell me all of them will be in the hellfire because they were simply born into a non-Muslim environment? Of course not. Come on. It does make sense according to the Quran, because Allah is the all just. So those people were, if they never received da'wah properly, they will be tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. And this will be my answer.
Can you share the hadith in Arabic?
Inshallah, I mentioned you after, but it's like 9 o'clock, inshallah. I'll give you the reference. But inshallah, I'd like to conclude with one thing. Honestly, I mentioned earlier, I'd like to, you see that donation box outside, there's a form in it. For like emails, names, and phone numbers. Can you please bring it out, Rami? I was mentioned earlier after Dhuhr, alhamdulillah, we said that this is a practical effort. Inshallah, we would like to form a da'wah committee here or a da'wah group. Not necessarily it is here for the masjid. No, even if you disagree with the masjid, even whatever the case is, I'm not sure exactly what's going on. But I'm just saying this is for Allah's sake. This is something that has nothing to do with the board or anything. This is just a local group here in Davis to give da'wah to the non-Muslim. If it has a form, I think this is it. Yes. If we can just pass this around. So inshallah, if you are interested to join this effort and to learn da'wah and practice da'wah, inshallah, help bring people to Islam. Start counting, inshallah, how many shahadas you can bring. Bidnillah ta'ala, I can promise you, again, I've made that promise many places, but if you stick around, inshallah, if you learn da'wah, you will start counting how many people that inshallah you guide to Islam. Bidnillah ta'ala, through Allah, of course, Allah is the guide. So now, we'd like for you to register your name, email and phone number, whether you're a brother or a sister. Inshallah, we'll form this da'wah group in here, and we'll contact you, and inshallah, we'll let you know about our training, which will be most likely over the internet, like through the webinars. We have like daily webinars. At the same time, we'll give you weekly class da'wah to do, inshallah, locally in your area, on campus, through the MSA, on the street, with other churches, other places. Inshallah, there are plenty of ways to give da'wah, but if you are interested, if you want to practice this effort, inshallah, register your name. Those who are not present, please write down your names. So inshallah, if you can pass this around. Again, to conclude, this is actually an effort done by Mercy for Mankind. Mercy for Mankind, the first full-time da'wah organization in America. Alhamdulillah, we have, mashallah, maybe a couple of da'wah efforts here and there, and which are based on volunteers, which maybe that almost like the full-time da'iyah, that expression we've never heard before because it's very, very new to the Muslim community. But our goal, inshallah ta'ala, is to recruit higher professional dua who are qualified, who have these skills that we've been teaching over the weekend, who are just taking this for life, inshallah ta'ala. And we have, mashallah, several of those. And alhamdulillah, the rate that we have right now is that for a full-time da'iyah can bring between 100 to 300 shahadas a year. This is a work of organizations. Like, you know, I know one of the most common organizations in America that has been doing that for quite some time. Their annual rate is 400 shahadas. This could be done by 2 or 3 full-time dads, by the way. But the entire organization, after 12, 13 years, is producing the same number. Anyway, I'm just saying, brothers and sisters, and I appreciate, by the way, every effort in da'wah. I love all those who do da'wah. I love them for the sake of Allah. They are very special people that Allah chosen for that. But I advise you, brothers and sisters, to learn da'wah. And if you're interested to be employed by us, whether part-time or full-time, and to be representative for Mercy for Mankind in the area, please let us know. We are currently hiring, alhamdulillah, nationwide. If you know someone who's qualified, especially someone who's already been doing da'wah and experienced already, he will have definitely the priority. Or someone who's willing to learn da'wah and take it, inshallah, as full-time career, definitely, why not? Because we definitely need dua. We have a lot of Muslims working, making money, but then we don't have enough people giving da'wah. So we need to support them. At the same time, we need to support them. As I mentioned, Jum'ah, wallahi, we are responsible. Da'wah is an obligation. We have no excuse. We have no excuse. Allah will ask us on the day of judgment. And we convey Islam properly, with basira, with hikmah, all these things. How many people have we brought to Islam? Wallah, I feel so ashamed when I compare the years that I spent in this country versus the shahadas. No matter how significant of a number of shahadas of people that I brought to Islam, it's so easy. If you compare to the days that you spend and the amount of people who accepted Islam, it's like you feel so ashamed of yourself. Wallahi, look at the Sahaba. Few thousands changed the world forever. Few thousands, only few thousand who stayed steadfast after the death of Prophet Muhammad in Mecca, in Medina, Taif, and they brought the rest of the Arabic Peninsula, and they went and they brought the masses. They spread Islam all over the world. As a result of their sacrifice, 1.5 billion Muslims today, plus all the billions in our history. SubhanAllah, only a few thousands changed the course of history. Well, this could be done. It takes rijal. As I mentioned this to one of the brothers last night. I told him, wallahi, this effort needs a rijal. If we have the rijal, the real men who are ready to sacrifice everything that they have for Allah's sake, even do 1% of what the Sahaba did, wallahi, Islam will change forever in this country in only a few years. So inshallah, brothers and sisters, listen to this. Seeking the virtue from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should support this effort as much as we can. Inshallah. I was yesterday after Jum'ah, one of the brothers, he told me, after Jum'ah, told me, when you were doing the fundraiser, tell me you should have made that $100, you should have asked people to just donate $100, because it's students and a lot of people cannot afford it, but you started with big amounts. So I was like, all right, honestly, I felt bad. I did not, I was like, okay, alhamdulillah, we're not going to do anything else. But then I think about it today, I was like, maybe I deprived those brothers, that students, from even although that $100 is insignificant, but subhanAllah, it can be very significant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every dollar can count. So I was like, you know what, I'll open the door tonight, inshallah, for those who want to pledge even $10 a month for 1 year. $10 a month for or $100 pledge. If you really want to do this, please raise your hand and encourage everyone. If you really want to donate, give $100, please do it now, inshallah, encourage the rest. Anybody wants to do this tonight? Because honestly, I feel guilty. I was like, you know what, I didn't give them a chance. Maybe they should be, even a dollar can make a difference. Inshallah, anybody would like to make a pledge of $100? Jazakallah khair. One, or $10 a month, by the way, it doesn't have to be $100 one time. MashaAllah, 2, 3, 4, anybody, 5, 6, could be $10 a month. $10 only a month. 6, mashallah, anybody else? Maybe 4 more? 7, 8, 2 more, any from the sister's side? Okay, 2 more inshallah. 2 more, so we can close with 1,000. MashaAllah, 900. Last 100. Last 100. Close it with 100. Okay, even MashaAllah, Zakat al sister. So MashaAllah, we have $1,000 here. Although the $1,000, it may, as I said, it may not sound like a big number, but wallahi, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll be surprised. Dirham, sabaq alf dinar. The skill of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the vision of Allah. Dirham is like a quarter. Could be more significant than 1,000 dinar, like $1,000 in Saudi money. So I just want to give you that chance. So I do have a pledge forms. Inshallah, if you pledge $10 a month or $100 one-time payment, please fill out the information right now and give it back to us, inshallah. So those who raise their hands, we can help. Inshallah, someone help me. If you can just give it, hand it out, and just give it to the sister, inshallah, in the back. And if you want to donate anything, also more than even $1, but inshallah, do not miss out on this. Again, thank you so much for attending and listening. And please register your names. And I'll be outside, inshallah. If you want to ask me any questions or anything, inshallah, I'll be more than happy to help you. سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. يا عبد الله. يا رب. Sure, you're correct. I think it has someone who would say. All right.